and provide this information to you. Thank you very much again. Good luck today. I can go, yeah? Okay, stay. Okay.
I would like to pay huge tribute to Alexander. It's the first time I've been able to host you in the United Kingdom, but we've met on 2 previous occasions, both times in Kyiv. And I'm very, very proud that you're able to join me here today. This is the man who's largely responsible for those heroes in hard hats, those Ukrainian workers who, through the darkest, coldest days of the Ukrainian winter, when the Russian attacks, missile attacks came in wave after wave after wave, was ensuring that the people were available, that the equipment was available to keep the energy infrastructure up and running. And just as those brave Ukrainians on the front line battled directly against those Russian soldiers and those Wagner Group mercenaries to keep their country free, those municipal workers, those engineers battled to keep the rest of Ukraine warm and keep the lights on. It's wonderful to start the second day here. I thank all of you who have already spent time with us for joining us again this morning. For those of you joining for the first day, welcome. As you saw from the video, we achieved a lot yesterday. We've had significant financial commitments. We had always said this was not a pledging conference. The idea of this was not necessarily for big sums of money to be pledged, and yet that's exactly what has happened. We've seen commitments from the commercial world. We're incredibly grateful from that. But the thing that I think is perhaps one of the most important and one of the most significant elements of this conference so far is the clarity of vision of our friends in Ukraine, their plans for the future, their optimism and enthusiasm for building back better than before, for driving forward a reform program which gives them the credible opportunity to leapfrog many of the other European countries that are currently supporting them and be a real innovator in decentralization, in a digital economy, perhaps even a cashless society. Ladies and gentlemen, our Ukrainian friends, both on the battlefield and in the institutions that support those brave warriors on the front line, have shown themselves over and over again to be deserving of our support, to be deserving of our friendship, to be deserving of our alliance. And it's a genuine pleasure to stand on the stage with you this morning. Alexander, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you. Thank you.
Now we have the opportunity to do a little bit of thinking out loud, a little bit of a discussion about the things that we discussed yesterday and our plans for the future. So I would like to invite to the stage the Lithuanian Minister for Economy and Innovation, Uzreni Armonaitev. No, sorry, I knew I was going to get that wrong. I've been practicing all night. Armonaite.
Your Lithuanian is perfect. Thank you.
And also Gordon Gerlich-Radman, easier to pronounce, good friend.
I think I'm supposed to.
Very easy, huh? Thank you, thank you. It doesn't matter how many times you practice it in front of the bathroom mirror. When you're up there and the lights are on and the microphones are live, you always get it wrong. But anyway, it's lovely to have you both here this morning, because I get to be the quiz master. You get to do the hard work, which I think is a good division of labour. So what are your highlights from the first day of this conference?
Well, first of all, since I'm the Minister of Economy and Innovation, I came here also not only for, sharing visions and, talking about Ukraine's future, but also meeting businesses. And when we were talking to business yesterday, they were quite happy about how practical and tangible this conference and the discussions are. Because it's not only, political statements, it's not only about it, political statements are important, visions are important, but reconstruction of Ukraine has to start now. It's not, we can't just sit and wait for the ceasefire to be reached. Schools are being destroyed today, children can't go to receive their education today, and we have to invest now. Of course, Ukraine has achieved a lot, maintaining its infrastructure. We are really surprised about how well digital infrastructure is working in Ukraine, despite all these very, very turbulent and devastating circumstances. So, well, I think this conference is very practical, and that's a good thing about it.
Fantastic. Gordon, you've been very kind hosting me in Croatia in the past. You've now come to see London. We haven't quite got the gorgeous coastline, but hopefully the scenes across the Thames are almost as beautiful as the coastline of your wonderful country. But what is your assessment of the first day? What do you take away from this?
Yeah, James, first of all, my warmest congratulations for the excellent organization, this timely conference. And as I expected, I told you that it's good that you are going to organize this conference, as we will be also organize this conference in October. That's something that connected us. I would just say that solidarity, unity, never in the history, the situation in Ukraine connected us. And never I had this feeling that we are together, that we are on the same page of the history, like we are now. And bearing in mind that Croatia, similarly to Ukraine, had the same situation 30 years ago. And who more than Croatia knows the situation, and who can better than Croatia could understand the situation in Ukraine in Russian aggression against Ukraine. And for the very beginning of the Russian aggression, and we show our solidarity and our assistance and help. My Prime Minister was among the first to visit Ukraine, and not only him, that's several ministers, of course, and we offered our help, assistance in demining. We are, I think, according to our experience and built on the homeland war, we can hand over our experience and expertise. As we started with Ukraine 2009 already, and recently our expert became the member of advisory board on the invitation of Ukraine. So unity, solidarity, on the same page of the history we are today. And thank you very much once again. That's a really impressive conference. I almost 3 days here. Today we celebrate in Croatia holiday, but it's my working day. It's my working day.
Oh, well, I'm sorry I made you work on a national holiday. I mean, people in the audience might not be able to see what we can see on the stage. I recognise so many faces, my friends internationally here, and there has been a real spirit of unity. I mean, tell me more about that kind of, I don't know, that collective spirit that I feel in terms of continuing to support Ukraine, not just in the military side of things, but in the recovery side of things.
Of course, and having in mind that it's not only military, of course, help, but assistance in the, that parallel to these events, we had a problem during Homeland War to return displaced persons and refugees internally, but we had to ensure the places, safety places, and the first action was to demine, contaminate regions previously occupied by the aggressors, and of course, very important thing was to healing the psychological wounds of the people and of those who just lost their loved, and it was not easy. We still search the 1,812 missing persons, It is something that make us sad and concerned, of course. But however, in these 30 years, Croatia has proved as a success story. And the hard work on the way towards European Union does pay off. And we recently also entered the Schengen zone, Eurozone. But however, in parallel to this, we strongly supported Ukraine, not only military, humanitarian aid, financially, and so on. We received recently 19 veterans for their rehabilitation reasons. And also the children to spend their summer holidays on Croatian coast. So we are very, very active in this regards. We received almost 30,000 refugees. So we are well connected to Ukraine in all the fields of cooperation. And when it comes to the special grains export or imports, Croatia offered as green lines, solidarity lanes, their ports, Rijeka and Ploče. We shipped more than 100,000 tons of grains coming from Ukraine. It's very, very important, not only for the people of Ukraine and people in the region, but also the people in Africa, Asia, and so on. That means we need to convince also our partners who are just consider that probably is a situation in Ukraine, a conflict, but it is aggression. And it's up to us how we can persuade our future or possible partners, first of all, in the Pacific area, to get them and to convince them that they have to support our fight against aggression. Yeah. Because aggression on Ukraine is aggression on our values and international law, and it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Azrini, your country was under Russian occupation for a long time. You've
50 years.
50 years, and you, as a nation, have gone through a period of recovery, of rebuild. I mean, what observations do you have? What advice could you give? What learnings could you share with Ukraine as they go through what is inevitably going to be a big period of change for them once this conflict is successfully concluded?
Indeed, and Lithuanians are very sympathetic to Ukrainian people because, well, it's European values Ukrainian friends are fighting for, but also Lithuanians, and I think many other Baltic countries as well, feel that it's our fight as well, you know, because of the history, because Russia can't win again, and because it's a good fight. I mean, it's not only territories, it's also values that we are fighting for here. And that's the general sentiment, I believe, not only in our countries, but also in Europe and worldwide. So that's one thing. Ukraine has been a long-standing partner for Lithuania and has been transforming already, even before the war. As your Prime Minister, Mr. Sunak yesterday said that, well, Ukraine was and still is a country of opportunities. It is a vibrant economy. I mean, even during this war, Ukraine's economy is running, and we keep trading with Ukraine today. So when talking and planning the reconstruction, I believe there are three things we have to, you know, take a deeper look. It's, of course, social infrastructure, schools, hospitals, kindergartens, these things, and Lithuania is contributing, not only government, but also businesses, rebuilding the schools in the region of Kyiv, 3 schools. Second is transport and logistics infrastructure, railways, you know, roads. Well, we have to maintain this trade because not only Ukraine needs us, but European economies need Ukrainian goods and services and all these products Ukraine produces. And third is, of course, digital infrastructure.
Tell me more about it. I'm glad you brought it up because I was just about to ask you. So tell me a bit more about the digital transformation, digital infrastructure.
Well, you know, sometimes people ask me, so how European countries could, help Ukraine in maintaining and securing digital infrastructure? I must say that Ukraine is doing great already on its own capacities, because it has invested. Governments, previous governments, current government has invested a lot into digital infrastructure, into transformation, into new technologies. And well, I can give you a practical, if I may, example. For instance, our banking institutions have no problem accessing, Ukrainian registers and so on, receiving data they need. And this is a surprising and positive achievement because, well, it's war going on. Sometimes, there is no water supply, sometimes there is no electricity, but internet connection, the data security is in place. And I believe that Ukraine could also teach some of Western countries as well, European countries, how to maintain it in the worst hours of war.
Well, I think it's very positive. I think it's a very good point that this isn't just about giving to Ukraine. This is also about learning from Ukraine as well. I think that that's something which is a very sustainable model. What do you, Gordon, what are you most optimistic about? When you think about Ukraine's future, you're from a region that has sadly seen conflict, and yet when I visit you, I feel optimism, I feel dynamism. What's your observation of a country transitioning out of conflict into a kind of a vibrant European nation?
I'm very, very optimistic regarding the Ukraine. Why? Because the situation in Ukraine recognized the whole democratic world. But 30 years ago, the Croatia was a part of the former Yugoslavia, and no one cared enough what's actually going on. It was the internal question of the former Yugoslavia. It was not easy. It was not easy to us to explain the world that something has happened and that we needed help. There we spent months and months to explain our friends outside that it's a breaking of international rule, it's a brutal aggression and so on. And then on 15th of January 1992 only, then we were recognized together with Slovenia as a sovereign country. But so our fight against the aggression and fight for freedom didn't stop. So we needed more than 6 years just firstly to liberate with our forces, 1995, and three years later, and the peaceful the integration of the eastern part of Croatia. But however, we in this time, very difficult time, also in parallel to this, we showed our readiness to be part of the international community and the West. And also given this very difficult circumstances, we succeed to be member of NATO, and later on, so this year we are celebrating 10 years of the membership of European Union, but you are not. But however, it's not no matter. It's very important that we share common values. Yeah. Rule of law, tolerance, human rights, it's the most important thing also. Whether are you in the European Union or not, no matter. However, we are on the same page. It's very important. And we could be a good example, for example, for the region. I was recently in Macedonia, and everywhere there is offered as a Croatian model. Actually, something is good to mention Croatian models and sometimes not. But however, we are very proud to the fact that Croatia has a model, however, and you are all welcome to Croatia as a model country, for example, to spend on holidays and so on. And our Adriatic Sea, our Adriatic coast, is not more only Croatia, it's also European. It's also for us. And that, for example, the Schengen zone for us, it's quite a big achievement. For example, if someone from Vilnius would like to visit Croatia, it's the car destination. Just if you have a big car, okay, you don't need to stop everywhere, and you are in a couple of hours, you are in Croatia. So I think this optimism, it must be enriched in our basis, and it must be fundamental if you see that if Ukraine will have future, and must, because there is when we just speak under evil and good. So the good, it's everywhere, it's only good. We have to be positive oriented and to be passionate and to invest our political instruments to help Ukraine. Because protecting Ukraine, we are protecting ourselves.
Absolutely.
We are protecting our values, human rights, rule of law, and it is something that connected us. Fantastic. No matter are you in the European Union or out of the European Union. However, I saw here many countries and many ministers, my good colleagues and friends who are not members of the European Union, but they are still in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a final question in the last few minutes of this session. We've had fantastic attendance from the commercial world, from the private sector. What role do you think they could or should seek to play in Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction and reform?
Well, I believe private initiative is essential. It's not governments that have to invest or take initiative. It's also private institutions, companies, financial institutions. They are doing it already. But coming back, to the main message, Ukraine is a land of opportunity, and I think everybody understands it. I talked to Lithuanian businesses that have never left Ukraine, even during the war. Some of those companies are real estate companies. Some of them have supermarkets, chains of supermarkets, retail. So they are there. And what they are telling me is that, well, our businesses it keeps running. I mean, people are purchasing houses, purchasing flats, despite anything. Of course, it's slowing down. Well, it's slowing down everywhere now, but the economy keeps running. And just imagine what will happen after we reach peace, after Ukraine will push Russians out of its territory. The country will boom. Everybody will hear about it. Everybody knows already about Ukraine. But I think there were so many success stories. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, look, can I thank you both? I think you've given some very thoughtful observations, both about the conference that we've had so far today. Both of you represent countries that over the last few decades have gone for different reasons and in different ways through huge transformation processes yourself. I mean, both your countries very successful, very closely integrated, friends and allies of the United Kingdom. And I think that your experience shows that a difficult starting point does not need to limit your aspirations or how far you can go as a country. Gordon.
Sorry, just
that's all right.
May I use this opportunity to express my gratitude to our companies, Croatian companies, who are also attending here today, these days, like Končar and Đuro Đaković. And so I am not only a company, but politically, but also concretely with the companies who are really involved strongly in citizens and in the dealing with Ukraine, and it's good sign that we are together. And of course, I would like to invite all who are interested in International Donor Conference in Croatia on 11th. It will be held on 11th and 12th of October in Croatia.
Brilliant
So you are
advert.
all welcome to Croatia.
Look, a brilliant advert. Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you to thank my two guests in the traditional manner for the really informative and interesting contribution about the lessons that we can learn through a nation's transformation. And that's, of course, what we're working towards for Ukraine. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you both very, very much. Now, for those of you who were hoping, and I'm sure deep down in your hearts this is what you all hope for, that I would now take to the stage and do more of the speaking, ladies and gentlemen, you are to be sadly disappointed, because I am going to hand over the floor to someone who is the CEO of a private charitable foundation, and it's a foundation that invests in global food security, in conflict management, and in the efforts to fight the particular evil which is human trafficking. The person I'm about to introduce to the stage, Mr. Howard G. Buffett, is active in agriculture, he's active in business, in conservation, in philanthropy, in law enforcement, in politics, and photography, which I have to say was an unusual addition to what is an unbelievably impressive list. He's held senior positions in public and private organizations, and I would like to invite him onto the stage now to share his thoughts about the philanthropic opportunities to support Ukraine's recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Howard Buffett.
Well, after they hear me, they might wish you stayed up. One of the advantages I have standing here today is that I don't answer to any agency, I don't answer to any bureaucracy, I don't ask anybody for money, and I don't need approval from a large board, and I'm always taking risk, and I'm always willing to fail. So with that attitude and that freedom to speak, I'm going to speak very honestly. And I was asked to speak about my experience in Ukraine, not so much about investment. But I will tell you, the war will not stop us from investing tens of millions of dollars. We started last year, and we're going to continue. But what I want to ask everyone here, and maybe not everyone here because many of you have made commitments, but those who have not made commitments, step up. Step up now when Ukraine needs the investment and they need the support. There's no time to look back. There is no time to look back, and I'll tell you why. Because what we do now is going to change the course of history, and we have to be on the right side of history. Less than 18 hours ago, I was in Ukraine, and I saw some of the same images I've seen on multiple trips, and I have to ask myself, why? Why are we continuing to see this, and why are we continuing to let it happen? I acknowledge, I appreciate, I thank everyone for everything they're doing to support Ukraine, but I've got to say that at times we've been timid. We've been helpful, but we've been slow. And at times, we've been indecisive. We're not providing Ukraine everything that they need to win this war. And worse, we're asking Ukraine to fight this war in a way that we would not fight it ourselves. So why are we holding back? Some are operating from fear. I'll tell you, no one has ever won a fight being scared of the consequences. John McCain said, to not provoke Putin is to show weakness, which will 100% provoke Putin. All of you know that quote. Senator McCain understood the consequences of our near silence when Russia went into Crimea and pushed west into Donbass. This time, we cannot fail in our judgment. We have no room to fail. Some are concerned about politics. Well, those politics are getting people killed every single day. Some are worried about escalating the war. For those, I simply ask if you're even paying attention to how the geopolitical landscape is changing and has already changed. It's not to our advantage. It's to no one's advantage that's sitting in this room. And do you have the slightest idea of what our world will look like if we fail Ukraine? On my last trip, well, a few trips ago, I met a 19-year-old girl who lost her leg, and she told me, all I want to do is go back and fight on the front line. That is the will of the Ukrainian people. I met a young man, Dennis, who lost both his left arm and both of his legs in Bakhmut. He wants to go to school so that he can counsel other amputees. I think about a 14-year-old boy, Arthur, who I met, and he was simply walking down a street in his hometown, and a Russian rocket hit, a missile hit, and basically the fragments destroyed his arm. The future of these young people has been altered forever. And unfortunately, there's thousands of these stories. No American would accept this for their child. No Brit would accept this for their child. No one in this room would accept it for their child. So why do we allow it to continue? My message is well beyond investment and well beyond this room today because I have the opportunity to say it. This war in Ukraine is a war on civilians. It's a war on food security, both in Ukraine and globally. It's a war on democracy. It's a war on freedom. And it's a war on sovereignty. Those are our values. Those are the things we need to protect. The widespread devastation, the scale of war crimes, and the targeting of civilians goes against every humanitarian rule, every law, and every convention that rules war. The war in Ukraine is a war on humanity. We must stop it. When I attended the 20th anniversary of the genocide in Rwanda, I've not forgotten one comment that President Kagame made. He said, no nation is strong enough or big enough to change history. We cannot let Russia change history. Russia has created the world's largest humanitarian crisis in my lifetime. They're responsible for the execution of thousands of civilians. They've stolen children. They've raped women of every age. These are facts, and Russia must be held accountable. I realize the main goal of this conference is to focus on investment. However, whatever comes out of this conference must also advocate for justice, and it must demand that our actions bring victory to Ukraine. In all of my life, I have never faced such a clear distinction between right and wrong. Never. When victory comes to Ukraine, it comes to all of us. Four days ago, I was with the 68th Brigade of the Army Forces on the front line at the counteroffensive. I spent time with Master Sergeant Andre Anastrat. 2 weeks ago, his son was fighting in the same brigade. 10 days ago, he buried his son. No father should see their son die on the battlefield, especially in a war that they did not start and a war they did not want. So we have a tradition at home that I'd like to invoke here. I would like to ask everyone to take a moment of silence for those who've given their lives to protect Ukraine. Thank you.
a huge thank you to this morning's spectacular panel and to Howard Buffett for that powerful and emotional speech. We now look forward to really exploiting the fact that the time is now by bringing together Ukrainian businesses and decision makers globally, and the businesses and the sectors critical to Ukraine's recovery, as well as breakout sessions covering livelihoods, tech, demining, and the regions. There are so many decision makers in this room. Let's make this happen.